Who sits on the top of the mountain? Mount Rushmore's mountain. What are the four things that I think are absolutely the greatest of a certain type? Well, I'm going to tell you for the second time as I'm doing my second Mount Rushmore episode. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Okay, Mount Rushmore's. Gotta love the concept of Mount Rushmore. Gotta understand the concept of Mount Rushmore. When people talk about anything, it could be sports, it could be food, it could be cars, you name it. For those of you who don't know, it's a way to determine what things are the best. And I think it's not necessarily the worst thing because there are plenty of people who say one specific thing is the best, but then there are people like myself in some instances where you have multiple items that could be the best. And specifically, when you're talking about Mount Rushmore, the number is four things, like the heads on the mountain in South Dakota with the presidents. Um, I love the idea of Mount Rushmore. It's just a great concept to think that there are levels to this thing, as some have said. There are levels to this thing. And at the top level, there is usually a group, or depending on what it is you're speaking of, an entities that are above everything else and sort of looking at everybody else. I find it to be really neat to have that concept. Whoever came up with it first was just absolutely brilliant because it's a really good conversation starter. Because it's one thing to simply say, hey, that is the best of blank. But it's something totally different to say, what are your favorite or best four of something? What do you think that is? Now, if you say one thing, you can generate a little conversation. But when you say four things, now all of a sudden the conversation definitely can be, uh, how can I put it, a lot more to interpret in each part of the conversation because even with my Mount Rushmores that I'm going to do on this episode, I actually have a section at the end that I'm going to do for honorable mention, meaning essentially I had four that I thought were absolutely at the top, but there was one more that I figured out of all the Mount Rushmores that I'm going to go over today that could have very easily, if I was in, say, a different mood, could have easily jumped into that Mount Rushmore category and been right there with the best that I found in these individual categories. I love the idea of Mount Rushmore. I've said it already, and I can't wait to go into this episode. Now, admittedly, I'm doing this episode 10 o'clock on February 14th, 2025. You're not going to hear this until, or I should say, you are hearing this for the first time in forever. Just kidding. On March 1st. That's what episode this is going to be. It's episode 197 of The Lip. And I think it's a pretty good streak when you think about 197 episodes in a row. I digress. But that's the plan today. We're going to go into Mount Rushmore. But right now, it's time to fill in the blanks. The question for today's blank is very simply going to be, do I personally think that there are four things that could potentially be the very best in most subjects? Well, my answer to that is I think that there is potentially an infinite number of things that could be best in a certain subject or item. That's how I fill that blank in. Because pizza, for example, my absolute favorite food, turns out for, I'm going to say since 2007, I was looking for a pizza place in Philadelphia that was not a chain place, the McDonald's, not a type of pizza place, in my opinion. Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Little Caesars, Domino's, those places that no matter where you go, it's going to be the same. I prefer your standard issue mom and pop owned pizza place. They're always going to typically be the best. But since 2007, in my ventures back and forth into Philadelphia, I couldn't find any place that made me feel that it was even not even just worthy of me eating it, but just good at all. It took me all the way up until 2021 to really find a place inside the city of Philadelphia that made me say, wow, this reminds me of the good stuff in New Jersey. And not only did I find one, I found two that are like within walking distance of my house. So it's a win win. But back to the question of, do I think that there is a possibility of being more than one, being four things that could be the absolute best? Well, yes. One of my favorite pizza places I'm speaking of that's not too far away, Aldo's. Great, absolutely delicious. I would swear by it. I go there every chance I get, and I would pay as much as $20 a slice if that's what they wanted to charge. Now, the very first time that I had their pizza, believe it or not, it was burnt. It was burnt. But because of my years of trying pizza and understanding that clearly this was the first time that I had it, and to have judged it so upsettingly, because I knew right away that there was something about it, even though it was burnt, there was something about it that was special. And to not give up on it. And needless to say, the very next opportunity to go have pizza from there, it scored off the charts to the point where it is, in my opinion, an elite slice of pizza. It really is. It's right at the top of my list. It would make my Mount Rushmore of pizza, actually. So the situation that you're watching a certain or trying a certain food or doing a certain thing, that might have a little bit of weight on whether or not you can judge it in that Mount Rushmore event. Because, quite literally, if you catch it at the right time, it might not be. But if you're wise enough to understand that the Mount Rushmore items are something that can um, stand the test of time, you can't just think about a Mount Rushmore item as something and say, oh, it was good once or it was bad once. Mm. It has to be super consistent over time. So that one burnt pizza, that was a complete anomaly. Never happened again. And we're talking 4 years later. Never happened again. So, once again, the question, do I think that it's possible to have four things that could actually be the greatest at any given time? Yeah, because that's a blank that gets filled in. Because situations can change and make that thing better. Just that simple. Now, it's time for the main event. I'm going to talk to you about some Mount Rushmore items that I have discovered for this episode. Now, I'm going to start off by telling you my very first Mount Rushmore episode was dated a long time ago, and that's pretty cool. Back in my show's archives that you can find on Spotify, you can look back to the date October 1st, 2022. Episode number 71 is my first Mount Rushmore episode. Think about that. That's almost 100 episodes ago. Being more specifically, we're talking 126 episodes ago. I did my last Mount Rushmore episode a couple of years back. But now, I'm going to give you a current, fresh Mount Rushmore episode based on some things that I find really, really cool. Let's see. Where are we going to begin? I think I'm going to go with the superheroes. The superheroes. My personal Mount Rushmore of heroes. And I do believe that these comic heroes are my absolute favorites. And to me, there's 1,000 people who could think of 1,000 other people to put on this list. But for my money, my four Mount Rushmore superheroes are as follows. And I'm going to kind of give it a particular order too this time. I think that number 4 goes to Daredevil. I love Matt Murdock. The idea that a guy who has lost a sense of sight, but he has all of his other senses heightened, and he's able to use them with literally superhuman focus. Just because he can't physically see doesn't mean he can't actually be a superhero. His ability to touch and his ability to smell and taste the air are super heightened. But what makes it really cool is his sense of hearing. The fact that it's so precise. It's so good that he can hear everything around him. To the fact that he can actually hear a human heartbeat and he can determine whether or not they're telling the truth. It's great. And of course, my other favorite part about that is his sense of sound creates a sonar so that it's almost as if he can see because of that sonar. So his sense of vision, which is for the most part taken away, is still somewhat there. And he's able to use it in a different way. But a man without fear is absolutely on my Mount Rushmore list. And if you look at my list, fear is certainly a strong influence on my list. I'm going to go number 3, the Green Lantern. Any Green Lantern, specifically John Stewart, my favorite Green Lantern. But any one of them can make for the reason why I think that they belong on that Rushmore list. I would use John Stewart as my face, but realistically, the idea that the will is the reason that gives them power. The ring itself is generated by the power of will, so they can create all those constructs, whatever they want to make out of their will. As stronger their will is, the better their construct becomes. They can make anything that they can envision. But again, the stronger their will, the stronger their construct will become. The only thing that a Green Lantern has to be beyond everything else is fearless. Because fear is the one thing that weakens a Green Lantern. Their willpower is what strengthens them. So for them to be without fear is the one way that allows them to use their abilities to their fullest. If they give in to their fear, there's not much they can do. But as long as they're strong, which is what most lanterns are able to do, hone in their will and able to use it for the good. Of course, I love the oath. Am I going to go into that right now? Might as well. It's really cool. My brightest day, my darkest night. Let no evil escape my sight. Those who worship evil's might fear my power. Green Lantern's light. Now, I'm going to go into number two. Another person who has absolutely no fear. And that is Captain America. Now, I know the movie Captain America just came out, a new one, Brave New World, where Falcon is the Captain America. Of course, there's been times where the Winter Soldier took the shield for a while, and others. But when I speak of Captain America, there is only one, and that is Steve Rogers, the original sickly, skinny kid from Brooklyn who could not physically defeat a fly, but had an intangible that, dare I say, not even the Juggernaut possesses. That is a fearlessness to never give up beyond anything else. Certainly, his tactical mind is something that helps him get through battles and makes him a good leader, but the ability to just literally be willing to do whatever it takes in order to complete his objective. That's what makes Captain America such a great hero. The idea that he has that kind of just guts and will never give up, never back down. There are plenty of heroes who are faster. There are plenty of heroes who are stronger. There are plenty of heroes who are smarter. But none of them have that will that he has, at least in the Marvel universe. Final superhero that I believe is on the Mount Rushmore list. Everybody who knows me knows who this hero is. I almost, to the people who know me, I almost don't even have to speak this hero's name. He is the Knight. He is in the shadows. He is the Dark Knight. I'm talking about Batman. I'm sorry. A person who, again, is absolutely fearless. And what makes somebody who has no powers at all, except for pure physical will, an intense workout regimen, and billions of dollars. Now, personally, if I had billions of dollars, I wouldn't want to be wearing a mask and driving all around, doing crazy things. I would be driving super expensive cars. Yeah, hmm that would be true. I would have a gigantic mansion. Yeah, that would be true as well. But I would do everything in my power to stay injury free, which has been a problem of mine in recent memory. But Batman goes above and beyond as he uses his money to create incredible technology so that he can use it against his enemies. And Batman is the kind of person that I like to think like. For example, the best thing that Batman ever did, in my opinion, is he's sort of a little untrustworthy. He doesn't trust people. He trusts Alfred, but I honestly believe he still keeps him at an arm's length. He trained a couple of different Robins, and I believe he keeps them to a point where he knows that they won't be able to get into too much trouble, and he can help them if he needs to be helped. Batman is such a cunning individual that he knows he doesn't have any powers, and he likes to think that neither does everybody else in the world. Like, there's plenty of superheroes who have all these incredible powers, like Green Lantern, and of course the obvious to say Wonder Woman and Superman, who are just above and beyond, right? Batman took a study and discovered a way to defeat each member of the Justice League, and he had it in a secret file in the Batcave as a contingency plan, so that if anybody on the Justice League or all of the members of the Justice League went rogue, there was a way that humanity could stop them. He even included a plan in order to stop himself. Just that kind of guy, always thinking a step ahead of everything and everybody. I love Batman. So, my superhero Mount Rushmore: Batman, Captain America, Green Lantern, and Daredevil. Now I'm going to move on to, well, since I already did the heroes, I might as well do the villains next. Mount Rushmore of bad guys for me. I'm going to, without question, have to tell you that a couple of these guys are clear reflections of a couple of heroes I just did. Now, to make it clear, no particular order. I'm just going to spit these guys out because I wouldn't want to mess with any of these guys. And I'm just going to throw them out there. Comic villains that are on my Mount Rushmore. The Red Skull. Now, obviously, he's Captain America's arch enemy. The German who decided to take Hydra and wanted to rule the world himself. Now, this is why I believe the Red Skull is on my Mount Rushmore. People can say what they want about how devious his plans are and how he created Shield, not Shield. Well, yes, essentially because his Hydra buried itself into Shield throughout the comics. But the thing that makes the Red Skull supremely evil to me and ultra dangerous is the fact that during World War II, he was a Nazi and he fought on the side of Hitler, but he chose to defy Hitler and do his own thing. That's something. So, like, even he was bad enough to even say, hey, you know what, Hitler, you're not good enough. I have a better plan, and I'm going to cut you out of it. So, if you're going to tell me that a bad guy is going to think like that he's going to say to what I would consider one of the most evil men in history, and say, yeah, no, nope, you're too soft. I'm going to do something much worse. That's a bad dude. Red Skull, absolutely a bad dude. Now, of course, another guy on this list who has that same mentality, but slightly in a different way, a guy who has no powers except for being, well, like Batman, super rich. I'm going with Lex Luthor. Now, you're going to say there's a billion people in the comic universe who have powers that can rip you in half and destroy whole planets. Bro, think about it. This guy has no powers, became a billionaire, became at one point the president of the United States. And this guy is so bold that he, normal human being, will do everything in his power to stop Superman, an invincible ultimate hero who cannot be beaten, essentially. He wants a piece of Superman. Are you kidding me? Now, I can think of dozens of villains in the DC universe who do everything in their power to stay away from Superman. And they all have powers. But this dude, Lex Luthor, goes right at his throat. That's gotta say something. He's on my Mount Rushmore for supervillains. The simple fact that dude wants a piece of Superman. I mean, typically speaking, like Black Adam isn't worried about Superman. He'll fight him, but if he doesn't have to fight Superman, he's not gonna go seek him out. Whereas Lex Luthor is going to go after him. Like, what? Really? I'm sorry, Luthor. You're a bad man. Now, if you were me, if I were him rather, I would consider dealing with Batman after knowing that he's also an eccentric billionaire on the other side of the world, on the other side, not the other side of the world, but on the other side of the coin, and maybe billionaire versus billionaire, no powers against no powers. That seems like a more even match. No, mm-mm. He needs an alien being with superhuman abilities. That just says a lot to me. Whew. Now, I'm going to get into my two favorite villains, and again, not in any other order, but I believe that these two are just off the chart. I don't know which one to go to first. I think I'm going to go with this guy first. A guy who is at certain times in the comics, you've seen him do battle with Reed Richards in intelligence, a man who has technology which can rival Tony Stark, an individual who has challenged Doctor Strange for the ability to be the Sorcerer Supreme. I'm going to go even further with this. Guy who at one point was so powerful because of the combination of magic and technology that he was able to physically knock out Galactus, the Eater of Worlds. I'm talking about Latveria's king, Doctor Doom. Whew, that's a man right there. If you wanted to be a bad guy, he checks pretty much all the boxes. He has in different incarnations, like I said, has been able to challenge Doctor Strange with magic as becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. He has such incredible technology that his suit. I read a thing about his suit. I could go into it for days, but between being pretty much indestructible, the thing has air conditioning in his suit. That's man, that's thinking because it looks heavy, and it probably is. But chances are it's 100 times lighter than it looks because of the alloys that he would use and the technology he used to create it. But his his number one nemesis is probably the smartest man in all of DC, rather than all of Marvel, excuse me, Reed Richards. Yes, Tony Stark is really smart, but Reed Richards is like another level above Tony Stark as far as intelligence. And Doctor Doom can match wits with him. So realistically, Doctor Doom is probably a little smarter than Tony Stark too. Just saying. So we're talking, like I said, super intelligent, incredible technology, ability to use magic in certain incarnations. In fact, one of my favorite games of all time, Ultimate Alliance, he is the ultimate bad guy, the big bad in Ultimate Alliance. And his brilliant plan was to take Odin's sword and take Odin's power and become as powerful as the Allfather in this game. And let me tell you how, I'm not going to lie to you, the only way I was able to beat that game was by using a cheat code. Doctor Doom is invincible, literally. Cannot be beaten. And when you're fighting him, he's literally sitting in his chair and he's bored. He's that powerful in that game. He's that powerful. Gotta love Doctor Doom. Now, when it comes to the final person on my list of supervillains, there is literally only one person I can think of. And it is the most random, most psychopathic, most horrific being that I think that comics could possibly produce. Because amongst the technology you can create, there's a limit to everything, even now. Although we are getting to a point where technology is evolving greatly, it's real simple to say that this guy scares people horribly. And nightmares are made of this guy's persona. I mean, this is a scary, scary individual. And what makes him even scarier is the fact that of all the heroes and of all the villains that I've ever seen or researched or heard of or even some I created, this guy could really be walking around. And that's enough to really make somebody go, wow, there really could be somebody who could do this. And it would be just like horrific. And I'm talking about the Joker. This is a guy who simply does not care. He doesn't care. The reason why he does things isn't because he's crazy, which just makes it worse, because really, he's not crazy, which is the part that's just hard to understand. He's not crazy. He actually has a twisted sense of logic to everything that he does, which is what makes it so much worse. He wants to see things be completely chaotic, and he does his best to make that happen. And he puts things in position so that they can be nightmarishly awful, and it looks random and just totally insane, but truthfully, he has a master plan behind everything he does. And that's what makes him so similar to his enemy, Batman, which most people don't really think of. But of course, there's a lot of differences, obviously. The guy who's dressed in black, who's totally serious, is the good guy, and the guy who's got a big smile on his face and always seemingly just doing things completely for no reason is the bad guy. And the two of them, it's like one of the best good guy, bad guy relationships you could ever have. Um, to the point where, spoiler alert, one of my favorite movies featuring the Joker is called Killing Joker. And there is this point where the Joker has done all kinds of horrible things. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I'm going to tell you this part because it's just intense. And even after I tell you, you're still going to watch it if you think it's cool. Batman's got him, and Batman is ready to kill him, but he doesn't. And then the Joker does something that makes me just, the whole movie just was worth this scene. Joker goes to tell Batman a joke, and it's about two guys who are escaping an insane asylum. The one guy says, let's go. And they leave, they get to the top of the building, and when they're at the, I'm paraphrasing, when they're at the top of the building, the two insane guys are looking at each other and they realize that they have to jump across one roof to the other and then they can get away. And one of the mental patients says, well, I bought a flashlight. What I'll do is I'll shine the flashlight across between the two buildings and you can run across the beam. And the other one said, well, no, because I don't trust you. Once I start running across the beam, you might turn off the flashlight so that he would fall between the two buildings. Batman heard the joke and he started laughing. So the Joker was able to make Batman laugh after he killed all kinds of people. Like, what? That was just intense. So somebody who could be like that and still just have no, I don't even know what you call it, but he just made Batman laugh. And Batman was helpless at that point. Realistically, if the Joker had wanted to, he could have killed Batman right then and there in that movie because Batman was totally distracted. What a villain. Here we go. My Mount Rushmore of comic villains. Doctor Doom, the Red Skull, Lex Luthor, and the Joker. Now, I happen to do a little bit of wrestling. It's just one of the things that I like to do. I found that the Mount Rushmore of matches, now, these are all my personal favorite matches. You can find all of these matches that I'm about to talk to you about on Peacock with WWE. All of these can be found. And I've watched all these matches repeatedly, and they are absolutely not vinegar. They are, without a doubt, wine. With age, they get better. I'm sorry, they do. I am a fan of the modern wrestling that's happening right now. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of guys who make me smile when they're in the ring. They do their good stuff. And the ladies, their matches are incredible. But these four matches that I've got right here, right now, are, without question, my four favorite matches that I've ever seen. Now, I've got a bunch of matches that I could put in my top 10, but every time that I start to think about my favorite four matches, I can't get these out of my head. It's almost like Demon Slayer, this anime that Aurora has got me watching. The top six demons for the bad guy never haven't changed in years, whereas the lower six that guy had change more frequently. These four matches, they don't change in my mind. They've got to be my top four matches. And even my honorable mention, this one doesn't even get to go in the top four. In fact, it gets to fluctuate from 5 to 10. But here they are. I'm going to give these an order too. Number 4 would have to be a match that happened King of the Ring, 1998. It was June 28th, 1998. King of the Ring. It was The Undertaker versus Mankind in the Cell. That match, I was over at my cousin's house when we watched it for the first time. Man, there is something about talented wrestlers who do great and incredible things. And then there's something about wrestlers who do more than what they should do. Now, some of you may know the match that I'm talking about, and others do not. This is a match where things went horribly, horribly wrong, but the match continued to go on. Um, Undertaker had a bad ankle during this match. Um, and Mankind, Cactus Jack, or his real name, Mick Foley, was in this match with him, and they were taking it relatively easily. And then the cage broke open, and they climbed to the top of the cage. Now, the cell is 20 feet high from the ground, the top. They get to the top of this thing, and while they're up there, Undertaker throws Mankind off of the cell. He hits a table, avoids the monitor, so he didn't die, but he broke his leg. Honestly, broke his leg. They came down with a stretcher. Stretcher came, picked him up, took him to the back. His leg is seriously broken. But what Mankind does next is borderline psychopathic. He gets off the stretcher, drags himself with his gimpy legs, terrible to say it like that, but his leg is broken. And he gets to the ring and he climbs back up to the top of the cell. Now, at this time, they hadn't really thought about reinforcing the cell as often as they had been thinking about. And a truly unplanned spot happened. Undertaker goes to choke slam Mankind on the top of the cell, and I guess the force of 320-pound Undertaker and nearly 300-pound Mick Foley was enough to put Mick Foley through the cell, and he landed in the ring, where he literally had a tooth pop out through his nose, and clearly did some damage to his body that was unrepairable. Uh, but the really scary part is there's a steel chair in the ring. When Mick Foley hits the ring, he just missed that chair by a small amount, or else this would be talked about in a much different situation. Because from the top of the cell into the ring is probably 15 feet, and he was going to hit his head directly on that steel chair. And man, that could have been ugly, but it didn't actually go ugly, and they finished that match. And Undertaker obviously won, and Mick Foley was out for a while, getting his broken body put back together. But definitely, King of the Ring, June 28th, 98, Undertaker and Mankind in the Cell, definitely one of my favorite matches. Whew. Another steel cage match, almost as brutal. This is in, when is it? It was November 28th, 1985. This one goes back the farthest of any of my favorite matches. It's a Starcade back when WCW was really NWA. And Tully Blanchard wrestled a guy named Magnum TA for the U.S. Championship in an I Quit match inside the steel cage. Not just a regular match, but an I Quit match. The match got ugly to the point where the ending of this match was so perfect. Um, Magnum TA ended up having a broken piece of a wooden chair, and he put it up against Tully Blanchard's face while he was bleeding, and he just wrenched the wooden piece of broken chair against Tully's bloody face until Tully quit. Gave the U.S. title up. It was brutal. It was technically sound for the match inside a cage. Everything made sense. It was just an incredible match. Starcade, June, June, November 28th, 1985. This was just an incredible match. One of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. Now, There would be no list of greatest matches ever for me personally, if not the Intercontinental Championship on the line. And even more so, if Mr. Perfect wasn't in it. So I'm going to simply cut to the chase and say SummerSlam 91, which was on August 26, 1991. The Hitman, Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect for that Intercontinental Championship. I'm going to have to say it's the same belt that I have in my collection. That Intercontinental belt, not the new modern one that they have now. Personally, I don't like it. I like the one that Perfect and Hitman wrestled for. And again, there's a reason beyond, oh, excuse me, that this match was good. And that was the fact that Mr. Perfect had a severe back injury in this match. And at the end of this match, he pretty much retired for several years. In ring competition was over for him for a couple of years. And it was serious. He was in bad, bad shape. And I'm telling you this because when you should watch this match, you see the way that he wrestles in this thing. Keep in mind, he has a serious back injury at the time. He could have very easily told Vince McMahon and Brett, we need to just phone it in so I can get out of here and get this thing taken care of. But instead, he worked a pretty good long match, injured like that. Finally, what I believe is the greatest match that has ever happened. At bare minimum, it's the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. March 29th, 1987, Intercontinental Championship match. Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Told one of the best in-ring stories that you could possibly tell. Every single move made sense, and it was done for a specific reason. Every single thing that happened to lead up to that match made sense, and it was done for a good reason. The finish of the match, some say, oh, it was a little sloppy, but think of it this way. They had timed everything up perfectly. A little bit of a slight movement, but you got to consider the fact that if you look at how the match was progressing and then you saw how it ended, you have to consider the suspension of disbelief that both men were in a state of severe duress and they had taken everything that the other guy had to offer and they were ready to give it up, but they knew that they had to go just a little bit further. That match was just, it was a masterpiece. I believe that if you were going to become a professional wrestler, it should be required viewing to watch this match. It'll teach you how to do everything, but if you could pull anything off that's done in this match, you'll be a great pro wrestler. So, my Mount Rushmore for professional wrestling matches: King of the Ring, Undertaker versus Mankind, um, June 28th, 1989, inside the cell, rather 98, inside the cell. Um, November 28th, 1985, Starrcade, Tully Blanchard versus Magnum TA, United States Championship, inside a steel cage and I Quit match. Um, SummerSlam 91, August 26th, 1991, Intercontinental Championship, SummerSlam, Hitman versus Mr. Perfect. And then the greatest match, um, March 29th, 1987, WrestleMania 3, Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the Intercontinental Championship. No doubt. Now, I'm going to go to French fries, of all things. French fries. My Mount Rushmore for French fries. Now, a couple of them have a little caveat. In fact, three of them have a caveat. One of them's weird. I'm going to go with no particular order here. I am a big fan of Longhorn's Steakhouse's fries. I think they're one of the best seasoned fries you could ever get your hands on, and it's incredible to me how good they are. Now, I do have one weird thing to say about Longhorn's French fries. They are a steakhouse, yet they don't serve steak fries. Hmm. They serve just your regular, ordinary, real thick cut fries, but not steak fries. And that leads me to the next fry that I think is incredible, which happens to be a steak fry in what is a burger place, Red Robin's. Now, their fries are absolutely 100% steak fries, and they're unlimited, and they're incredible. But if you add that seasoning to them, all bets are off. They are above and beyond anything else. And that seasoning, you can put it on anything. You can put it on cat litter, and it'll probably taste good. But it makes these fries 10 times better than they already are. And they're already by themselves incredible. Red Robin's fries with that seasoning. Now, speaking of seasoned fries, I'm not usually a fan of crinkle fries, but I make a strong exception to the fact that I put them in my Mount Rushmore. Chicky and Pete's crab fries. I'm sorry, those things are what the kids say the truth. They are insane. That seasoning that they have on those crab fries, it's just it's insane. There was a time when I went to go watch a game, 49ers versus Eagles, at Chickies and Pete's, and it was one of those ones the 49ers won, actually. What did I order when I went to Chickies and Pete's that day? I actually didn't even get the wings. I just ordered fries, a lot of fries, because you just don't need anything but those fries. They're that good. Now, here comes my heartbreak fry, and it's in my Mount Rushmore. You can catch them every once in a while, like the 18. If you can find them, they're the ones that you're going to really love. And that is, of all places, Taco Bell's nacho fries. Oh my goodness. I have to just take back a little bit when I say this. The Yum Corporation, which owns Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and um, KFC, has a fry that is just the basic fry alone is an incredible thing. And if memory serves me correct, you can get just their basic regular fry at Pizza Hut. But on occasion, they will introduce the nacho fries at Taco Bell. Taco Bell is I mean, you eat some of that stuff, some people have issues with it. Those nacho fries and a Baja Blast, you cannot go wrong with that. I mean, the sad part is you can't get the nacho fries in the same size that you can get the KFC fries, the bigger container for their large fries. I mean, when it comes to nacho fries, the only size should be trash bag. It shouldn't get any smaller than that. You should never have to to have a set of fries that are smaller than what you would get from I don't know, the McDonald's small fry. Never. It should only come in garbage bag size. And I'm not talking about just your run of the mill tall kitchen bag. I mean the industrial size 55-gallon trash bag. That is the smallest size you should get when it comes to those nacho fries from um, Taco Bell. They're incredible. My Mount Rushmore French fries absolutely has to be Chickies and Pete's, Longhorns, even though they don't sell steak fries. Their fries are incredible. I wouldn't be hurt if they switched fries with Red Robin because, well, Longhorn's fries are kind of burger fries and Red Robin's fries are steak fries. So just, maybe it's just me thinking about it literally, but Red Robin is up there with their seasoning and the nacho fries. That might be my favorite one. Now, finally, I'm going to go into cereal. Of course, I am a cereal box collector. Like I said, I'm actually recording this on February 14th, 2025, so I may or may not have already received my 1000th cereal box. But as a result of that, I can tell you that I've had a lot of different kind of cereals, and a lot of them is garbage. I'm not gonna lie to you. Some of that fancy, cute stuff that comes in a cool box, the stuff inside is best suited to put right in the trash can. But these four, I come back for more every time. The first one is, well, two of them are still in existence, and I'll go with them. My go-to cereal, even though it's not Magic Spoon, which I do love, don't get me wrong, Golden Grams. Absolutely on the top of my Mount Rushmore. They are there. They are my absolute favorite. Can't get enough of them. Oh, excuse me. I enjoy me some Golden Grams. I really do. The next one is Reese's Peanut Butter Puffs. Man, when those things came out, I was thinking, they're not going to be that good. I was severely and happily to say that I was wrong. Man, them peanut butter puffs, you just can't keep them around in my house. They're incredible. Love them. Now, to go into what I'm going to say to elite cereals. And the problem with these two is they no longer exist. Peach flavored Cheerios. When they came out for a very short time between it was 2016, 2018, somewhere in the neighborhood, I wouldn't even buy Golden Grams when I saw them. I would constantly buy the peach Cheerios. They were the best. We're talking about a cereal that is not too sweet, but had great flavor. And it was peach of all things. And it just hit you like, okay, I could use more of this. And that's the thing that made it so good because sometimes when you get flavored cereal, especially fruit flavored cereals, you can be really disappointed because the fruit flavoring is just either too strong or it's too weak. This was perfect. You had a perfect peach flavor. I miss them. I miss them bad. I wish they would come back. Granted, the blueberry ones are good if you can find them. They're also very good, but the peach was the best. And the ultimate and final member of my cereal Mount Rushmore is a cereal called Swedish Chef's Crunchy Stars. Now, this is the ultimate cereal to me because it was a cinnamon, sweet, crunchy cereal that never lost its flavor, that always stayed good, and it was incredible. And again, back to the cereal box collection, I am currently scouring eBay to find a Crunchy Stars box. I keep coming up with the refrigerator magnet. I don't want that. I want a box. Now, if you could have told me when I was eating those things, when they came out, that I was going to be on the brink of getting 1,000 cereal boxes in a collection, I would have kept one of those boxes around my neck in a plastic bag, taking showers with it to make sure I didn't lose it. But we're talking, it's been well more than 30 years since Crunchy Stars was a thing. And I wasn't even thinking about it. Now, fortunately enough, there was a cereal that came out for a short period of time that snuck in, and I grabbed it for my collection, and I tried it, and it was oddly familiar. It pretty much was the Crunchy Stars. Now, I don't have my list right in front of me, and I only got one box of the stuff before it disappeared. But it was not called Crunchy Stars, but it was some sort of star cereal. I can't remember which one it was, but it was absolutely the same formula. It was the same stuff. I remember the taste like it was yesterday, and it was gone just that quick. Now, I'm that person who says, hey, if you want to change something's name and repackage it, I'm all for it. But just keep it around. Don't let it disappear for almost 40 years. But that's what it came down to. It's gone. I miss it. It's not coming back. But that is my Mount Rushmore for cereal. Golden Grams, Peach, Cheerios, Reese's Peanut Butter Puffs, and the Swedish Chef's Crunchy Stars. Now here comes the part that makes this episode a little bit longer. I didn't think it was going to be this long, but hey, I think I need to go into this. Um, Honorable mention, Heroes. I have to go with an Omega level mutant, Storm. She is so powerful that she can control the weather on any planet. Didn't quite make my top four here in the Mount Rushmore, but she very easily could have. When it comes to villains, I like the Master of Fear in a lot of ways. Someone who uses fear to be his best weapon. And that's Sinestro with the yellow power ring. The power rings can do almost the same thing. They have immense power and they can do a lot of things. And the fact that the Sinestro's ring is fueled by fear, that yellow ring is just really dangerous. Sinestro, honorable mention for villains. Wrestling matches, the double turn when Stone Cold Steve Austin went to the ring as a bad guy and the Hitman went to the ring as a good guy in WrestleMania 13. They had a submission match, and at the end of the day, Stone Cold Steve Austin came out to become a good guy and will always be the best and maybe one of the biggest draws in wrestling history. And Hitman turned into a bad guy. Fries. Well, I already told you the nacho fries were my favorite, but KFC uses the same type of fry, but they use 11 herbs and spices on it. So that KFC 11 herbs and spices fry, that is an honorable mention for fries. And finally, Dunkaballs, which is a cereal that I have loved it. It's in my collection. It is incredible. It was Wheaties. They made it. And I can't tell you how good that cereal was. I can't really describe it because it had a sweet taste to it. And I hate to say it, maybe I'm getting so old, but I can't quite remember what it tasted like, except for the fact that it was so good that me and my cousin almost lost our minds when they stopped making it. But then when they came up with Quarterback Crunch, which was the same cereal, just a different shape, because Dunkin' Balls was basketballs and Quarterback Crunch, they shaped it like footballs. We were just as happy because it was the same stuff. If you're going to change it, bring it back and keep it. Oh well. Okay. I'm going to ring the bell in the main event, and we're going to move on to the next thing. I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to answer it. And here is the question today. Hmm. The question is going to be, how sociable are you in new group settings? The answer is real simple. I'm really not. For somebody who puts this stuff on YouTube, I am not really sociable in new settings. Let me explain. It's real simple. What I'll do is I'll go to settings with different people and not really know anyone, and I won't really say anything. I sort of survey the room and take the temperature, and I wait. If somebody comes to me who doesn't know me because they're just trying to mingle, I'll then speak to them, and usually I'll talk to that person for the duration of the time, and sometimes that person will then maybe talk to somebody else, and then I'll sort of spread out that way. But for the most part, I just sort of sit back and wait to see how it plays out. That's just the way I kind of do it. The question that I've got for myself is, how sociable am I in group settings, in new group settings? Now, old group settings, different story altogether. You walk around, you already know everybody, so you sort of say hi to everybody. But the new ones, you don't know anybody. Listen, I sort of keep my distance and sort of wait and see what happens. Kind of how I do that. Not the worst way, I don't think. But that's how I'm doing it. That's how I've always kind of done it. That's how I always will. And now it is time for the Spear of the Week. This week, the Spear of the Week can only be one individual. And I bet she forgot about me, but I didn't forget about you. As I'm recording this, it was earlier in the week. And like I said, it's February 14th that I'm recording this. This probably happened February 11th, give or take. Taking the kids to school, have to get in line in order to drop them off. And of course, you got to wait until they open up the doors so you can let the kids out. I was actually there super, super early. So early that I was first in line. And while I'm sitting in line, I'm at a point where there is a opening between the spaces so you can cross, essentially. It's a crosswalk. Now the door is on the lower side of the crosswalk, and you're sort of past the door if you go across the crosswalk. So I'm here in front, I'm waiting for them to open the door, and turns out this lady decides to get out of her car and beep at me, first of all, and then she gets out of the car and says, I gotta get to work. Can you move up? Now, the average person would be like, I understand, you gotta get to work. I'll move up, no problem. However, if you see the circumstances of the drop off area, you can understand why I would have to spear this woman. Because there are two lanes that you have to go through for the drop off lane, and then there's the parking lot. Knowing that you were not first in line, knowing that other people were going to wait to drop their children off at the correct time, and that you are now part of this group in the middle here, the smartest thing that you could have done is not pull into the line where people are waiting to drop their kids off, but you could have gone to the parking lot, let your kid out, and then you would have had a free reign to just leave. But no, you had to be in the line and demand that I move. And long story short, you're the spear of the week. On that note, I got to tell you about the painting that you're looking at right now. Of course, I call this one, of all things, painting 814. Now, granted, that's my daughter's birthday, my oldest daughter, Aurora. Her birthday is August 14th. I did not paint this painting on August 14th. I didn't make it for her. I was looking for a name, and painting 814 just came up. I ain't got nothing more for you than that. I'm sorry, it's really just that simple. But as far as this episode goes, there wasn't a whole lot simple in order for me to have to sit there and think about which ones of these things were on my Mount Rushmore. And in truth, make it even more insane, the fact that I actually moved this episode up because I had something else in mind to do. And it just seemed like it fit better for me to put this thing here on March 1st, 2025, as opposed to March 8th, which is what I was going to do. But trust me, I think March 8th has a better story for March 8th, and the Mount Rushmore needs to be right here, right now. March 8th, you're going to hear me talk about what are we doing? And I'm telling you, there's a lot of questions that I have and a lot of answers that I'm not going to get about what are we doing. And this will be the fourth time that I'm asking that question. And it'll be the fourth time that I'll be asking it on deaf ears, I think. We don't know what we're doing. It's just that simple. First thing I got to tell you is like and subscribe here on YouTube at Phil the Lip. At Phil the Lip. Join us on our Facebook page, the Lip Facebook group. There is room for one more every time. There's always room for one. You can always just join. Just one more person every time. Philip Henderson 5102 is where you can catch me on Instagram. I got some YouTube love the other day. Not YouTube. This is on YouTube. A few weeks ago, I actually had a pretty cool video that I did about me drinking blackberry Dr. Pepper, and on what was it, TikTok. and I got over 1,500 views. Go check that one out. And check out the Blackberry Dr. Pepper. It's actually pretty good. You can check me out on X as well. And it's time for me to give you the words of wisdom for today. The words of wisdom are very simply this: just because you think something is great doesn't mean that it is. Just because you think something is great doesn't mean that it is. Essentially, what I'm telling you is all those things that I put on my Mount Rushmore, you may hate. But even more so, you may not even like the categories of my Mount Rushmore. Pick your own. Let me know what they are. On that note, my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lip.